Hello, thank you for attending the webinar today. Today we want to talk to you about NORFI products. In particular, we want to talk about the NORFI Technorail as well as their tailpipe adapter offering. Technorail is the smallest of the three primary rails that NORFI offers. There's the Technorail, the ALU 150, and the ALU 250. The primary difference between these three is the size, the free area of the rail itself. In this case, the Technorail is the smallest, and it is equivalent to approximately a 6-inch diameter at 27 square inches. The Technorail is an extruded product, comes with the sealing lips and the retaining clips, and here you can see the basic sizes, the basic lengths that we offer. These lengths can be modified, but these are the basics. These are in meters, so 5 meters would be roughly 16.5 feet. The rails themselves, when we provide them, come with the rail stops, the end stops to keep the trolleys from coming out of either end, the end covers, the end plates, as well as the hanging bracket, the initial hanging bracket, and any couplers required for longer lengths. We provide the couplers, the hardware, we provide the sealing lips, as well as the retaining clips for the sealing lips. And we also include with the rail, depending on the configuration, either a duct connection for the end of the rail or a duct connection for the top of the rail. If we were doing a long rail with multiple drops, more than likely you're going to get at least one, if not multiple, top mount duct connections. The reason for that is because of the small free area of this, we want to make sure we get the air spread out evenly. If we have multiple drops on a rail, say we had multiple 4-inch diameter drops at 300 CFM each, we want to make sure we get that total air volume spread out evenly along the rail. So we want to get multiple duct connections to it to draw from several points on the rail so we don't get all the air trying to come through one point. This is the basic extraction trolley. This would be used for the simple drop, a balancer type drop, or we use these in conjunction with the hose reel trolleys when we mount hose reels on this. There's 3 different trolleys available. One of them has an automatic damper that would open automatically as you pull the hose drop down, as you pull the balancer down. There's another version of it that's a mechanical damper that you physically have to open. You pull it open with a string or a rod. And then the simplest version does not include a damper at all. These trolleys are available in 3 through 6-inch diameter for the Technorail product. Maximum velocity we want to see through these is approximately 3,500 feet per minute. Usually in these applications, when they're properly applied, the velocity through the trolley is going to be much less. You can see the trolley has what we call the canoe. That's the shape that opens the sealing lips as it travels back and forth along the rail length. There's multiple wheels to keep the trolley centered and in the rail. And there's even on the top, you can see that T-bar device. That's a safety catch. If the trolley were to get jostled in such a way that the trolley would fall out of the rail, that would catch on the inside of the rail profile. We can put hose reels on these. Again, depending on the CFM, we will select the proper trolley and connection point for that. We make the trolleys and attach the hose reels to them. And these are available for the Technorail as well as the larger rails as well. Here's the standard offering in terms of the hose reels for the Technorail. 4-inch through 6-inch diameter and 20 to 25 feet of hose depending on the application. Again, these rails are not going to be mounted extremely high, so we don't need a lot of hose on the hose reels. And the hose reels in this case are typically spring operated. We can do motor operated hose reels on a rail, but keep in mind that electricity is required to make them work. So in that case, in any rail situation, we would have to put an electrical bus bar on the side of the rail to power the reels up in a case of a motorized situation. Typically, probably 99% of the time, you're going to see these as being spring operated hose reels. In addition to the simple drops or hose reels, we can also add welding arms to these rails. With the Technorail, because of its size, we want to keep the arms to a 4-inch or 6-inch diameter, which again will put us in the 300 to 600 CFM range per arm. And we want to keep the arms relatively short. Let's try to keep them at 7 to 10 feet long. The problem with a longer arm on a rail is it can exert a lot of leverage on that rail, and we don't want the trolley to get twisted out of the rail. And that's the other beauty of the rail, is it allows you to move the arm to where you want it rather than having to make it reach a long way. So if the rail is positioned properly, to maneuver the arm, same thing with a hose reel or a simple drop, as long as it's positioned properly, the arm length or the hose length does not need to be very long, because we can pull the corresponding trolley to the work rather than trying to make the arm reach or the hose reach to the work. Here's a shot of a Technorail in a car dealership. You can see in this case that there's multiple hose connections, 2 hose connections per rail going to a common fan. Each rail has, in this case, 2 trolleys, and these trolleys would be 4-inch diameter, 300 CFM apiece, so there would be a 600 CFM total for each rail going to the fan. You can see in this picture how they have used steel supports to hang it. We want to make sure that the rails are solidly connected to the structure above. Keep in mind that this is a dynamic system. The trolleys move back and forth. Not only that, but if one of the mechanics were to forget that the hose was attached to the tailpipe and they drove the car out of the bay, the last thing we want to do is take the whole rail down off the ceiling. So we want to make sure that the rail is secure to the structure, and we want to make sure that it can't sway or move longitudinally in the event that somebody does drive away with the hose attached. Here's a shot of, this happens to be an ALU 150 rail, but what I want you to see here is the fact that they have hose reels on it. In this case, there's 3 hose reels per rail. There's going to be multiple duct connections to this because of that. And in this case, you can see how they have hung it with, again, hanger support steel to keep it securely fastened to the structure. And there's also longitudinal supports to keep it from moving longitudinally parallel to the travel of the rail when it is installed. Here you can see some of the, again, installations in terms of the Technorail, how they're used. And in this case, on the right hand side, you can see some of the special features that can be done with this product. These special features you probably will not see in a normal car dealership. You will probably see these in some kind of a manufacturing facility where the trolleys have to move, or they need to take trolleys out of service. You can see in some of these cases there are ways to take trolleys out of service. You can shift them off the track and take them out for service, or insert new trolleys into the track without having to basically disturb the installation. This can be done on the fly basically, so you can pull a trolley into position, take it out of service, slide a new trolley into service if required, and the process can be maintained. I've got some other pictures further into this webinar that will show some more action shots in terms of how these are used in an automobile manufacturing, for example. Some of the areas that you can utilize this product, Now, not all these market segments are going to apply to the Technorail because of its size, but nevertheless, if there's a internal combustion engine running or a welding process or a light fume or dust process, that's where this rail can be used. Automotive service areas, bus garages, fleet, anywhere where the vehicles are going to be primarily idling and not revved up and not creating a lot of temperature. Motorcycle shops, tire shops, vehicle inspection centers, that type of thing. When we get into the larger maritime applications or locomotive repair, train stations, the air volumes required with a project like that are going to far exceed what the Technorail can handle. But nevertheless, there are other solutions for those projects. Now, I think we've talked about this in the past, but when it comes to rail, it even further enhances the reasons to use source capture. Rather than doing general ventilation, which we know takes a high CFM, a high quantity of air to properly ventilate a whole space, high CFM requires big fans, requires high horsepower, the energy costs are higher. And not only that, but the demands on the HVAC systems are going to be higher as well. With source capture, we minimize the amount of air that we're taking out of a space, which again requires less CFM, less horsepower, less energy. In a rail system, we actually can reduce the CFM requirement because we're not using as many drops as we would if it were a traditional system. For example, if we had a service garage that had 10 bays in it, 10 bays at 300 CFM apiece would be a total of 3,000 CFM if we had a hose drop at every bay. With a rail, we can run the rail behind the bays and have maybe 3 drops that would get shared between the 10 bays. So now we're at 3 times 300 is 900. So we went from 3,000 CFM to 900 CFM just by utilizing the rail. When it comes to rail in terms of cost of the product, the rail systems are going to be strictly from the hard parts. A rail system would be slightly more than if we did a conventional system. However, when it comes to the installation, it's probably going to be less because we have less ductwork. We have less hose reels or hose drops to hang, and the fan is going to be smaller, electrical service will be smaller. So in the end, it's going to be a wash, or it could, in some cases, fall in favor of a rail being less expensive than a traditional system because of the fact we're using less drops and less energy, etc. Moving from the rail to the nozzles. NORFI offers quite a wide range of nozzles. They also have some custom nozzles that you'll see that are specially designed with certain vehicles in mind. Here we have some nozzles that actually have a quick release function to them. There's the clamps that are used to attach the tailpipe to the tailpipe adapter to the vehicle have a release mechanism in them that we can tie into a cable that gets tied to the flex hose. If the flex hose gets pulled too tight, as the example of someone driving off with a hose still attached to the vehicle, if it gets pulled, it's going to automatically open that clamping feature and hopefully allow the tailpipe adapter to fall away from the vehicle rather than continue down the road with the vehicle. These are available in different configurations, obviously: round mouth, oval mouth, metal, rubber. Depending on the application, we can select the right tailpipe adapter for that application. Those same tailpipe adapters obviously would be available without the quick release function. Again, round, oval, metal. The unit in the bottom is a round aluminum nozzle with a toggle type clamp to attach it to the tailpipe. That particular adapter is also available with a brass toggle clamp for higher temperature applications. The rubber nozzles are available, again, oval mouth, round mouth, angled inlet, straight inlet. In this case, you can see they can take the same nozzle and move the toggle clamp either from the left side or the right side. Depending on the application, you may not want the clamp on one side or the other, so we can configure it with the clamp either on the left or the right as required. The nozzles that you see in the middle and the bottom, rather than using a clamping function, a toggle clamp or a vice grip type clamp, these use pneumatic air pressure to blow them up. It's like a balloon. So if any of you are familiar with some of the fire products, they have these bladders are attached to a compressed air source and automatically filled and released. Now in this case, if we're using them in a service type application, we would not do that, and they can be hand pumped. So you can see the little hand pump on the right of those tailpipe adapters with the release valve. Once they're slipped over the tailpipe, you simply pump it up. That air pressure is what's going to grip that tailpipe adapter to the tailpipe. And when you're done, you just open the valve, the air releases out of the bladder, and you can remove the tailpipe adapter off from the tailpipe. These are also available with a 45-degree inlet or a straight inlet, as you can see. Same thing in an oval mouth. The pneumatic pump will pump it up to attach it to the tailpipe. The lower nozzle tailpipe adapter is a little more sophisticated looking. Basically what this does is it allows you to, it has an internal gripping device. Rather than a toggle clamp or a vice grip that you're going to clamp on the outside or to the rim of a tailpipe, this has a it will go inside. It'll slide inside the tailpipe, and then when you pull the grip, the clamp, it will expand on the inside and hold it on the inside. Where these are handy are for vehicles that, you know, a lot of the modern vehicles have the tailpipe and the bodywork are extremely tight, and it's hard to get a normal traditional tailpipe adapter over that. So rather than trying to fit something over it, we can slide this into that tailpipe, pull the handle, and it will tighten up onto the inside of the tailpipe, but that's what's holding it on. In this case, you can see it has a bellows, so that bellows will push up against the back of the vehicle, the tailpipe, to catch the fumes as they're coming out. These are more of the same of what we've seen before. The only addition that they've really made to these is rather than having the toggle clamps 100% exposed, the metal parts exposed, they add some rubber stripping to them to protect those parts, protect the vehicles really from getting scratched if they swing around or hit the vehicle in any way. So same tailpipe adapters as what we saw before, same diameters available, just we've added more protection to the outside of the clamping device to protect the vehicles. Same with the metal, same with the oval. These can be done in the automatic version as well. Now for a simpler device, we have the lower tailpipe adapter is really made to kind of a self gripping, if you will, the way that it's made. You can take it in your hand and open it up to slide it over the tailpipe. When you release it, it will go back to that triangular shape that you see, and it kind of holds it onto the tailpipe. They also offer some adapters that are more of a press fit type of an affair. They're tapered. They have little, you can see in the picture, some little gripping type ridges on the inside. As you slide that over the tailpipe, that's what helps hold it on, rather than using a clamp or a grip of some kind. Those teeth are what help hold it onto the tailpipe. These are typically used in the smaller diameters, 2-3 inch diameter hoses, up to 4 inch. And we do have some larger mouth versions of these for larger tailpipe diameters as well. Oval mouth available, Same type of a clamping feature where they slide over and grip on the tailpipe rather than having a clamping function where there's a vice grip or a toggle type clamp that actually physically grips it to the tailpipe. In addition to those standard offerings, they also make some special tailpipe adapters for certain vehicles. In the case of the bottom one, and we're talking about this was made for Mercedes SLR. That was one of their high performance cars. It's something that you probably are not going to see on the street if ever, but that particular tailpipe adapter was made to fit the custom exhaust that they had on that car. That particular car had the tailpipes coming out right behind the front wheel, and they were built close to the bodywork. So NORFI designed a tailpipe adapter that would slide over that and not scratch the body, and it could be clamped onto the tailpipe and it would hold securely. Another one that they did one for Volkswagen. It had a special mouth configuration to fit the dual tailpipes that Volkswagen had on certain vehicles. They also made a special one for an AMG type Mercedes that had, again, dual, an odd tailpipe configuration that required a special tailpipe adapter to fit over it. They also made a special tailpipe adapter for the Mercedes Maybach, which was their big sedans, high-end sedans. Again, not a vehicle we're going to see every day, but nevertheless, a tailpipe adapter is available that is made specifically to work on those particular vehicles. Now, for tailpipes or vehicles that don't lend themselves to a traditional tailpipe adapter, something that will slip directly over the tailpipe, or in the case where we have bodywork that's in the way and the tailpipe adapters just simply can't slip over because of the bodywork, NORFI offers a variety of different tailpipe adapters on stands. These stands can just be slid right up to the back of the vehicle. As you can see on these particular units, the tailpipe adapter is adjustable vertically up and down on the stands, so we can adjust it to the height of the tailpipe depending on what vehicle it is. If it's a school bus, we can raise it up to the height of the tailpipe. If it's a car and it may be low to the ground, we can set it down low to the ground. Or if the tailpipe comes out in an odd direction, maybe pointing down towards the ground, one of the scoop type funnels can be used to basically fit up underneath that tailpipe to catch the fumes as they're coming out. To take it to the extreme, the bottom unit is not only adjustable vertically up and down, but that scoop is on a pivot, so it can pivot around a little bit and maybe get aimed up if you have a tailpipe that's coming down. It's also on wheels, so it's easy to move around. Not that that is very big. It's not that big, but it does make it easier to have wheels to move it around if they're using it in a variety of different applications within a dealership, for example. They also offer some larger mouth, depending on the application. You can see, especially on the top one, these are made for larger diameter hoses, which means higher CFM applications, 8-inch through 12-inch diameter hookups. So we could be dealing with a fairly significant amount of air in this case, but it is what it is. You need to have high volume of air if it's a large engine running at high RPM, for example. The center unit, as well as the bottom unit, the center unit doesn't roll around on wheels like the bottom unit does, but that particular adapter, you can adjust the attitude or the angle of the opening of the tailpipe adapter. In this case, in these photos, they're shown with the opening facing straight up, but you can manipulate those so that the opening could be facing straight horizontal if required. The upper tailpipe adapter was made with trucks in mind that have a under chassis exhaust. And in this case, they it's not a traditional round or oval type exhaust pipe. It's more of a rectangular opening that the discharge of the tailpipe is more of a rectangular opening. So this particular adapter allows them to slide that under the vehicle without having to get actually physically under the vehicle. The The complete assembly is adjustable height-wise, up and down, vertically up and down, to match the height of the tailpipe on the vehicle. And not only that, but horizontally it can extend and retract depending on how far it has to reach underneath the vehicle. So it's got quite a bit of adjustability to reach those odd tailpipes underneath. We have taken these and modified them for use on different applications where maybe the opening needed to be turned 90 degrees rather than being rectangular the long way, it needs to be rectangular the short way. So we have taken those and changed them if we need to for those types of applications. NORFI also offers a Y kit that's on a stand that can be used rather than, again, in applications where the tailpipes don't allow you to use a regular Y kit, a regular tailpipe adapter. This way we put it on a stand, and that stand is fully adjustable vertically up and down height-wise as well as width, so we can match those two funnels, tailpipe adapters, to the width of the tailpipes on the actual vehicle. Here we're going to show you some of the custom capabilities in terms of tailpipe adapters, and in this case a rail application. This was a automotive application where the vehicles are moving down the assembly line, and in this particular case the vehicles are running. So as they're running and moving down the line, they obviously wanted to catch the fumes coming out of the tailpipe, and this allowed them to do that. This was a fully automated system. In this case, the tailpipe adapters would come from overhead, and once the car was in position on the line where they needed to start the source capture, the tailpipe adapter would drop down from above to behind the car, and then the speed of the trolley was timed with the speed of the assembly line, so that the trolley just followed the car all the way down to the end where this particular application was ending, and then the tailpipe adapters would raise back up again to the stored position and would travel back around and get in line again for the next vehicle. Here you can see it looking from the opposite direction, from the front of the car rather than the back, but you can see how the cars are stacking up and getting staged to start the process down the line. You can see at the same time how the tailpipe adapters, the source capture system, is also stacked up and staging for the vehicles to start that particular process. So as the cars pull into position again, the tailpipe adapter drops down behind the car and it continues down the line until they get to the end of that process. Here we have another custom tailpipe adapter. In this case, it was a test area where they pull the cars in and do some light testing on them. And rather than having the person doing the test have to manipulate the tailpipe adapter into place, this was again fully automated so that it could be swung into position once the cars pull onto the test rig. So the cars will pull onto the test rig. This thing will swing automatically back behind. You can see it's wide enough to cover both sides of the vehicle in case it has either a tailpipe on the left side, or it may have a tailpipe on the right side, or it may have dual exhaust. Either way, this thing can handle that. And as you can see, there's even a short piece of rail so they can move it forward and backwards. And in addition to that, the rail itself was on a little trolley, so it could be moved as well. So there was a fair amount of adjustability in this depending on which vehicle was coming down the line. Here you can see it swung into place with the vehicle on the test bay. You can see that it swings right behind, up close to the bumper. In this particular case, you can see the tailpipe on the right side of the vehicle. I don't think in this case there was a tailpipe on the left side, but if there was on the one on the left side, the tailpipe adapter, if you will, is obviously wide enough to handle that, or if it had dual exhaust, it would pick up both of those exhaust points at the same time. This is another spin on that particular device. Rather than having it cover the complete vehicle across the back, it was set up for either left side or right side exhaust. So depending on which side of the tailpipe which side of the vehicle the tailpipe was exiting on, there was a similar setup to this on the opposite side of the vehicle too. So if the tailpipe in this case was on the driver's side of the car, the thing would swing out for that. If it was on the passenger side of the car, there was another similar device on the opposite side that could swing in. And in this case, if they had dual exhaust, they just swing both of them into place and they're good to go. And finally, for anyone that's into old arcade games, here we have Pac-Man coming out of the floor. So in this case, they did not have room for something coming from overhead or from the side, so they wanted it to come out of the floor. Once the cars were rolled over this into position, obviously the floor would open up and the tailpipe adapters would rise up out of the floor and cover the tailpipes to catch the fumes. Again, I affectionately call this one Pac-Man. In terms of marketing material, we have a wide variety of different brochures and data sheets available for all of the NORFI products. We can do display banners, that type of thing for not only all of Minox products, but it can be done specifically for NORFI products as well. These are available for co-op as well. We can make these banners, put your company name, company address, phone number, all the contact information, as well as ours on it. And with that said, we like to co-op these. It's a 50-50 split, depending on the application and the banner type. They're anywhere from $400 to $450 each, and we like to split that cost with you. So you would have your own banner for $200 to $225, and we cover the other half. I'd like to thank you all for taking your time today to participate in this webinar. Our contact information is below. Feel free to call or email. All of our data sheets and brochures and videos are available on our website at minoxevent.com, so don't hesitate to visit there as well. Again, thank you for your time, and please feel free to give us a call if you have any questions.